The best way to watch anime in the comfort of your own home on all your devices is with Crunchyroll Premium, where you can watch new stuff and also old stuff as well. Shows you grew up with, every single episode of stuff like Naruto, Bleach, it's all on Crunchyroll Premium. Try it right now at crunchyroll.com/geekdom or click the link in the description. You know, I've been watching a lot of ECW lately just for the fun of it, going back and reminiscing. And one of the things that really struck me about ECW, specifically throughout its entire run, but really in the 95, 96, 97, 98 era, which is like the peak of ECW, was those 4 years, is not the violence or what people talk about all the time. It's the violence and, not even the great wrestling or the hot crowds. In comparison to what the business used to be versus what the business has become, I feel like one of the aspects of the business that is missing that we don't talk about enough is genuine true heat with emotional storytelling. And this goes for both AEW and for WWE and even to an extent New Japan and the Indies. Now, I'm not saying that these companies have not really executed this ever, but I feel like when I watch wrestling now, and again, I'm not knocking these companies, I'm just getting to a point. When I watch wrestling now, a lot of it either comes off a little too cartoony, like your WWE, for example, having an eyeball ripped out of your head match, eye for an eye match. I mean, it's wacky, which I enjoy, but it's also just very cartoony. And then you've got stuff like sort of the more athletic, realistic style of AEW, NXT. Everybody has their own style. Then of course New Japan are the best at these kind of things, and they have their own style, that sort of faction-y, great match kind of a feel to it. Love at New Japan. But what it's missing is, I think we need more angles and storylines that are very, very interpersonal. I feel like they try to do it with the Lana Rusev, Bobby Lashley thing, but it just doesn't work because it's not believable. Because obviously we know in real life that Lana and Rusev are married. They're not going to ever get divorced. Well, actually, no. Let me not say that because it is the wrestling business. But I hope they don't because, I don't ever want a marriage to fall apart. But in kayfabe land, in fantasy land, she left him for Bobby Lashley, whatever. And a lot of it was played up for comedy, which was good. But there came a point where Rusev was kind of like, you know what, I don't care anymore. Bobby can have her, right? Which is fine, that's fair. But it was sort of missing that emotion. And I'm not sure if it's because of Rusev as a performer, because I think Rusev's very funny. But he might not be a guy who can really do this sort of angle where, in 98, the ECW, the Dudley Boys broke Beulah McGillicuddy's neck. And it was sold throughout the entire summer as being a big deal. So Tommy Dreamer, who was, Beulah's shoot husband, was out for revenge. And he would team up with guys like Spike Dudley. He would team up with the Sandman primarily. He would team up with New Jack at one point. Whoever he could to take on the Dudley Boys because they had their own sort of arsenal of allies like Jack Victory and these guys. And the whole thing became about Beulah's neck being broken. And it's one of those things where obviously man-on-woman violence does not fly anymore. You can't do what they used to do, like when Jake Roberts slapped Elizabeth. You can't do that kind of stuff. And I'm not proposing man-on-woman violence, but I'm saying, like, I miss an era where you had a real beef with somebody in wrestling. Even though, again, it's a work. Like, you beat up my wife, or even like a lot of thing where she cheated, or you tried to manipulate my son, like what Raven did to Sandman in 96. Or even something that got very personal, like there was a feud in ECW with New Jack and Mustafa pretty much, who was his partner for years, had turned on him and joined up with the Dudley Boys, and it became this sort of just very personal stuff they were saying. They were cutting promos in the streets, like just really good stuff. And while that was going on, you had Taz chasing Shane Douglas, and they were very real with the stuff they were doing. Like, Taz was hungry for that belt, and he was willing to team up with his arch rival Sabu. Like, all these angles and all these characters, I think, worked, especially for that environment. And I feel like with wrestling, it's become a bit too much of a clown show. Now, obviously, we all know that it's been this way for a while, but it really hit me like how wrestling used to have these angles that were very personal, these guys, these characters, these performers would be able to dig up something from within, of course, another example would be the Ric Flair and Vader match, where Ric Flair cuts his promo on television, where he's very serious. He's not even being Ric Flair. He's being like Richard Fliehr, the man. I mean, he didn't say he was. It wasn't one of those Russo things, but he basically comes out and he's like, I got into a plane crash in the 70s. My back broke. They told me I'd never wrestle. And here I am again, putting up my career. Just very, to the point. Wasn't limousine riding, jet flying. It was just Flair to the point, right? A more serious promo, not a traditional Ric Flair promo. And it was great because we had seen so many classic Ric Flair wacky promos about how much money he makes and the girls and all that for decades. But this was his career was on the line. So he cut a really serious promo. And he was great at it. And it's one of those things where, like, the business is lacking, like, real, like, powerful heat. You've got, like, the swamp match and all that. And some of this stuff is fun. I would say that even the last time they did this would be Undertaker and AJ Styles, actually. Because remember how Taker's like, where's my wife's name, boy? Where's my wife's name? Like, going into that sort of interpersonal territory. Not necessarily discussing, like, wives and girlfriends all the time. But, like, really sort of digging at somebody else to really build up a feud to where we as fans, even though we know it's a work, we want to see these guys wrestle and fight each other, even if they're not the best workers. You don't have to be a Kenny Omega or an Okada to want to see that. And I think New Japan might have something with Evil now as a top guy. I think they could build something off of that. But I just feel like watching, and again, ECW was different. It was very counterculture and very edgy at the time, but wrestling had always done this, even into the 80s, with the Mega Powers exploding and even like Andre betraying Hogan. Like, it's just so well done. Hogan was afraid of this guy. He had that look of fear on his face, but he had to go in there and fight the Giant, in 87. You can go watch all that stuff, man. It's all available. It's all out there. And I just feel like we're missing that. I think maybe there's too much TV to produce. I mean, there's all kinds of excuses. Vince McMahon has no competition. You've heard it. But I feel like we're missing that. We're missing that element. I think the last time that element really was captivating, at least for me, was the Gargano feud with Ciampa. I think that was the last time it was truly captivating, where I'm watching it like just, mesmerized by these guys, and they go out there and have this match that tells this unbelievable story during the New Orleans weekend for WrestleMania. I was there in the city. I didn't go to the match, and I regret not going to the show. But, whatever. I had very expensive WrestleMania tickets that year. I was in the fourth row that year with Mike Danielson in the NFL and with Super Bowl ring carrying Lawrence Guy. That was a cool ass night for me, yo. Wale was like three or four seats to the right, and then Travis Brown, Ronda Rousey's husband now, was also there, and we had a conversation. It was crazy. It was a crazy weekend. But anyways, that match was awesome. That match was better than anything at WrestleMania. And I didn't get to see it. Well, whatever. But, yeah. So, I really miss that about wrestling. Like, I really miss that kind of angle. Even the Bret Owens stuff from the 90s. Like, something that digs a little bit deeper and that we as people can relate to, whether it be a jealousy angle, but the performers have to be able to deliver without it being a clown show, And everything just felt so emotional and so powerful. And maybe it's because back in those days, even though we all knew it was a work, we still believed. Like, we believed in these characters. We knew they were characters, but we believed in them. Same thing with, if you watch Iron Man or the MCU, or if you watch, Harry Potter or whatever, you believe in the character. You believe in Voldemort. You believe. Within that universe as a fan being entertained. And I just feel like the business is kind of missing that, And I think that the business needs to get a little bit more. Not everything has to be serious. I'm not saying that. I mean, not everything has to be interpersonal, but maybe a little bit more of this kind of build-up. Because right now it's just not doing it for me. Like, I know that Dominic Mysterio is going to wrestle Seth. I don't care about that Dominic, bro. Like, I don't care. Like, they haven't gotten these guys They haven't told us enough about these guys for us to care, in my opinion. They just don't really tell us enough about these guys. Like, we know about Seth, but why do we even care about Dominic? I never cared about him when Lesnar beat him up or not, as a character. They haven't done enough, in my opinion. So I think that the business is really lacking that sort of powerful emotion. I think the word I'm looking for is emotion. I don't know if it's because the promos are all kind of crap, except for the ones in AEW, or I don't know what it is, but it's kind of lacking that. I'm thankful, though, that AEW is letting guys like Cody and Jericho and Jake Roberts and Eddie Kingston really bring the heat, because that's what the business needs, is more guys like that. But that WWE product is so homogenized. You're going to get good action, don't get me wrong. Those guys work hard. But I think wrestling needs emotion. I think any great story needs emotion, whether it be anime, video game, or film, or TV show, whatever. I think you need that emotion there to really reach through the TV and grab us and get us into these characters. It doesn't matter if it's real or fake. There's always going to be a set of emotion there, and we have to be able to root for these guys in spite of all the problems that they've had. So, anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. What do you think? Do you agree that wrestling needs more emotion, more emotional storylines, and maybe better characterizations? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I love you, and we'll talk soon.